Hello and welcome back to DoshTech. So today we're going to be upgrading the graphics card in the 2014 PC build that was featured on this channel. So what we're going to be doing is putting this GTX 960 in to upgrade the GTX 620 that was put in here when it was first built, which was second hand back then. So could do with a little bit of an upgrade. This is going to be a quick video to show me how I do it and how you would do it if you were to undergo the similar sort of situation of upgrading an older generation graphics card with something slightly newer and quite a lot more powerful in this situation. Things you're going to need for this: first of all, a wooden table. This is a good static free solid work surface that won't collapse whilst you're trying to work on things, which obviously wouldn't be good. Next of all, obviously we have an upgraded graphics card, in this case a ZOTAC 960, the mini version, which will fit in this case no problem at all. And the last thing, a Phillips head screwdriver. Pretty much the only tool you need to work on a PC. So, we put these to one side for a minute. You'll want to lay the computer down so that you have the vents on the side panel facing you. If you have that, and that would pretty good bet that that will be the correct side to take off. So what you want to do is just come to the thumb screws on the side. They are technically have a grip on them, so you can actually use your thumbs to undo them, but they can be extremely tight, so the screwdriver will also help you here. So just get your hands under this little flap here and then put it back like that, and the side panel will come off. So here's the culprit that we're looking to upgrade, but before we do anything, touching anything in here, we'd like to ground yourself to some metal object like a radiator or, I don't know, a light switch, just so that you don't get the static electricity off your hands and damage the components inside, which can happen. So what you want to do is you want to, first of all, before you start doing anything, get the graphics card that you're upgrading it with out of the package and make sure it will actually fit. So that will clearly fit, and it's not too long. We have a spare slot underneath to fit it because this is a dual slot card, as we can see here, as opposed to the single slot, which is the older one here. So put that down. Before we install the graphics card, the next thing we need to make sure is that we have a big enough and powerful enough supply. So here we have a Corsair CX430, which is more than adequate for everything inside here, and a 960 graphics card. However, you also want to make sure, if your graphics card has external power like this one does, it has a single 6-pin connector, we want to make sure that the power supply can handle that. Now, I know this power supply can, and it has a connector for it, but I don't actually have that, so I'll go and get one right now. Right, so I've now obtained the correct lead, which is a PCI connector here, which will plug into the modular power supply. Good idea if you ever buy a power supply to keep all of the modular leads that go with it, otherwise you might have to buy a new one. Right, so now I have that ready, we can first start by taking the old one out. This is quite a simple process. There is a screw at the top on the PCI slot, which you need to undo first to release the bracket holding it in, which also has the connectors on the back side here. Then, next thing you need to do is to get your finger down to the bottom of the slot on the back side of it and reach down. There's a small tab at the back of the slot, you need to push that down and then you can pull the card straight up. Best to hold it by the heatsink when you're doing this, just to avoid damaging it. Something you might want to take note of, you might run into a situation where the slot bracket next to it is actually blocking access. So what you want to do is just take out the slot next to it, which will make it possible to remove that one, and we need to take this one out anyway to fit the new card, so no loss really. So we'll just take the screw out, pull it straight up, and then you have the slot bracket out of the way. Now we can put our finger in here and pull the bracket back, pull the card straight up, and it's free. As you can see, dust does build up in here. So it might be a good idea before you shut this back together to clean out all of the fans inside and all the dust that's accumulated in the bottom, because it's not going to help cooling and it's certainly not pleasant. So we'll put this to one side good idea to put that in the anti-static bag that the new one came out of, just to avoid damaging it. Appears to be some dust actually on the PCI slot, so it's probably a good idea to get rid of that. But obviously don't brush it into the slot, brush it away from it. Right, so what we want to do next, line the bracket up with the outside, so just like so, and then bring it down towards the slot until you can see where it's going in, and then push it straight down, making sure you're not trapping any cables underneath, which I am, so I'll move those. There you go, and then push straight down. Nice big click, and then you know it's in. Screw the bracket back in where it came from. Try not to drop any of the screws onto the motherboard, like I did when I first built this. Not the most intelligent thing to do. There we are, that's now securely in place and it's not going to move about too much. Next thing to do to make this actually work is we need to plug in the modular lead into the back of the power supply and then plug the PCI power in. No cable management in this particular case. This is the Fractal Design Core 1000. So I'm just going to sort of wiggle it under everything else. And I hope it doesn't look too horrible, so that's that. You can see marked on the power supply is a 6+2 PCIe. That is the one that we want to plug our PCI Express power into. So just orientate that correctly and plug it in. And that clicks into place so you know it's secured. Next thing I want to do is I want to get the other end of that cable which is plugged in, which is here. It's quite easily marked PCIe on there, so there's nowhere else that can go other than straight into the graphics card. There we are, that's now plugged in. So we'll just move that out of the way of the side panel as much as we can. And that is it. That's as simple as it is to installing a graphics card. A few points to mention. Obviously check the power supply, the wattage. You might need to upgrade it with a slightly bigger unit before you buy the graphics card. Otherwise you could risk damaging the entire lot. Make sure it's a decent quality one as well. Obviously Corsair is a well-known brand and the CX430 is their budget option and it is a very good one. I have many of them, not one of them has failed, so that is a very good DoshTech recommended product. Obviously make sure it has the correct leads so that you can actually power it, and of course before you buy the graphics card itself make sure you actually have enough PCI slot covers to actually fit it, and it's not too long that it won't physically fit past a hard drive cage, for example. And one last point to mention about the graphics card, make sure it has the right connectors so you can actually plug your monitor in once you've all finished this. So that's the graphics card installed and plugged in. So the last thing to do is just refit the side panel as you did before. So just there's a few grooves and there's a few little notches on the edges of the side panel. So just line those up. It should be fairly loose like that, and then you know it's in the track, and then just push it forward and it slots in perfectly. 2 screws. Do these up by hand. Don't tighten these with a screwdriver, just use the thumb screws as thumb screws. Otherwise next time you come to undo them they might be a bit tight. But hopefully you won't need to be in here again, because hopefully it doesn't break. Okay, so plug the computer back in. Obviously make sure you plug the monitor in. If you're using a different connector then obviously make sure you use an adapter or the correct lead. But obviously after this just turn the power supply on if it has a switch, and then obviously make sure the monitor's on so you actually know if it's working or not, and then power it up and see if it works. And there we go, it's a safe bet if the BIOS screen lights up, it's probably working. A few last points to mention whilst the CD drive makes a horrible noise in the background. A few more points to mention. Obviously make sure that you have the correct drivers if you're getting an NVIDIA card or and replacing it with an AMD card or vice versa. Make sure you obviously get the correct drivers, otherwise it might have a bit of a battle with itself. And other than that, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon back on DoshTech.